Hi there, and welcome to the Carpe Diem Conversation Show, where we have conversations with real people who share their real life stories about getting more out of life by integrating work and life as one. My name's Andy Willis. I'm the host of the show. Welcome back to everybody that joins us every week. Really appreciate your support. And for anyone that's joining us for the first time, welcome to you as well. Just a reminder, as I remind you every week, this is a conversation and you are absolutely encouraged to join the conversation. And how you do that is by adding questions, asking your questions in the comments. So just add your questions in the comments. There is a serious lag with Facebook. I say this every week, I know. Please don't wait until the end of the show to add your comments. Just add them as you think of them. We can answer them as we go along, or we can leave them and answer them at the end. But please, encourage you to join this conversation, and please start joining the conversation by saying hello, if for anyone that is out there. Okay, tonight's conversation is with someone that I've never actually met in real life, but I feel like I've know her because we've been in touch and connected on social media for so long, actually several years. Tonight's guest is Jodie Willmer from Happy Changemakers. Jodie and her business partner, her life and business partner, Rob, have been in business together for 5 years. Both are escapees from not-for-profit and corporate leadership roles who decided to combine their superpowers to create a life and business together. They're not only escapees from corporate life, they're also escapees from the city. And that's something we're going to have a chat to Jodie about. And without further ado, let's welcome Jodie to the show. Come on in. Hey, Jodie, how you going?
Hey, Andy. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
How are you tonight? Good?
Yeah, really well. Well, we've had some rain in East Gippsland, which is much needed in this drought, so thank goodness. But it's held off a little bit while we do this show, which is great.
Yeah, we don't need storms cutting off internet and things like that. Hey, Jenny. Jenny said hello. How you going, Jen? She joins us every week, as she should. She's my biggest supporter and my partner. So, hey, Jenny, how you going?
Hey, Jen.
Okay, Jodie. So, let's start this conversation. Firstly, where are you? Tell us about where you hang out at the moment.
Well, Rob and I live in a small town, well, it's a village really, of Eagle Point, which is located about 3.5 hours east of Melbourne in the beautiful Gippsland Lakes region. So the nearest big town to us is Bairnsdale and Paynesville as well. So where we live is in an area where there's a couple of caravan parks and people come and travel here for their holidays. So we sort of feel like we don't need to go on holidays often because we live in such a beautiful location.
Yeah, and I can attest that it is a beautiful location. Something you don't know, but I used to go down there with a bunch of bloke mates on a sailing weekend. It was a bit of a boys' weekend. We'd done that for several years, and yeah, we did stop by at Eagle Point at some stage. I think is there a bar there? I think we only stopped at places.
No, we don't have a bar.
No, it's another place.
But there's beautiful lakes and a lot of people use it for all sorts of water sports and there's fantastic walks and the other thing we love about this part of the world is that there's fantastic national parks. So what is this area is known for as well is one of the largest salt jetties. Actually, it's a silt jetty. And so where the soil has been deposited over time and now it's created land. So lots of beautiful wildlife. We've got kangaroos and koalas at Raymond Island just off Paynesville, where you can catch a ferry or head over there on your bike or as a pedestrian for free and see beautiful koalas in their native habitat. So it's just amazing, and we just love it. We really have been embraced by an amazing community of small businesses and like-minded souls. We're very, very fortunate.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Now, but you weren't always there, and this is the journey we'd like to actually have a conversation about tonight. So before you come to this beautiful place, you were city-based, and you not only were city-based, but you also come from corporate life as opposed to the business you're in now. Now, first of all, tell us the business you're in now before we slip backwards.
Yeah, sure. So I guess like you and a lot of other people like us as well who have gone into business for ourselves, things have evolved over time. And so initially when we first got together, Rob and I decided to move in together, and then shortly after we decided to work together. And I guess we're looking for more freedom and flexibility and, wanting to experience life in a different way. So I was the CEO of a not-for-profit for 8 years, an amazing organisation that's thriving and doing great things now. And I just really reached a point where I thought I felt tired from being responsible for so much. So many people, amazing volunteers, great services, but I just got to the point where I think now looking back, I was quite burnt out. So, and Rob was working for a small technology company, and was sort of not really sure where that was going to lead to longer term. So we actually had a holiday in Thailand, and I'd already resigned from my job, and I had nothing to go to. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. No business plan, no, I hadn't dusted off the resume. And I just thought I needed to create a space, and Rob was very understanding about that. And we actually commenced working to help people set up Airbnbs as our first business venture together. And how that came about was I was renting my apartment on Airbnb, and we were getting amazing reviews. The guests were having an incredible experience, and we built some great systems. And people were asking us how did we do that, and could we help them? And really it was through having lots of cups of coffee with people and them saying, could we pick your brain? We're like, well, maybe we could create a business out of that. And so that's what we originally started with. And as time's gone on, we've refined and changed that to now working with both small businesses, non-profits, drawing on both of our skills, and now under Happy Changemakers as a brand. And we're helping people tame the chaos, plan for the future, and also create the impact that they'd like to in the world.
Well, okay. So, and I remember, I think that's when we first was in contact, was when you did have that Airbnb business, and you were helping people with Airbnb. So when you were in that business, when you started in that business, you were Melbourne based, was that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we were living in inner city Melbourne in Coburg, and the apartment that we have is in inner city Melbourne. So, we were really going between the two locations, and we're traveling quite a lot to help people with their properties. And then we became really actively involved in the Airbnb community and of hosts, and took on a leadership role there with another host who established a great network and community of like-minded people. And that took us to, speaking all around the world in Paris, and, traveling to the Airbnb Opens in San Francisco, in Paris and LA. So we were really fortunate to find like-minded souls and also great opportunities at a time when Airbnb was quite new. So that was a really great experience to have. But, we really felt like there had to be something more that we wanted to do, and we wanted to be more flexible about where we could live and work. And so, we had to think about how we could design our lifestyle and a business that would accommodate more flexibility and freedom.
Okay, so you first escaped the corporate world. You went into your own business, but stayed in the city. Mm-hmm. What motivated you then, and what was the big step? And I remember this big step. We were talking about it. You in the lead up. What motivated you to move away from the city, and how did you make that step?
Well, I don't know if you realise this, Andy, but you have inspired us over the many years, especially about the way that you've framed the possibilities for people to set up their business that can thrive without them being sort of physically there, and creating good systems and, you know, engaging great people. So we actually went overseas to Europe about 2 years ago for about a month, and we were working remotely there using Zoom. At that stage, I was doing some, you know, governance related things for non-profits, and we still do some subcontract work for a couple of really fantastic companies. And it was really at that month when we were away in Serbia where we thought, well, you know, gosh, if we could really do this successfully, manage time zones, and actually be able to continue to earn money and do what we're really good at, then maybe there's some flexibility about where we live. So we came back from that trip after the month away, and then decided, right, that's it. We need to write the list of what we're looking for, and where we'd like to live, and start on the hunt to find the place that would be our next home.
Okay, and that's exactly what you did. Was there any challenges, any hesitation had you grown up in the city? Did you spend a lot of time in the city?
Yeah. Well, we both grew up in the city, and I guess, you know, in a way, we were inspired by programs like River Cottage Australia and Fat Pig Farm, and, you know, we had aspirations initially to have a property with wildlife and things, but that was going to be too big a leap for us in terms of going from, you know, an urban environment to suddenly, you know, working our way about how to be farmers. So we decided to write a bit of a list of what would be the criteria for us of a place that we could call home. And top on the priority list was stable and thriving internet. So if we could have great internet, then we had, you know, lots of opportunities. And then initially we thought, well, actually, we'd need to be close to an airport because, you know, when we want to travel for work or leisure, then that's a priority. As we started searching, and we decided to stay within Victoria because, you know, our family live in Melbourne, and Rob's parents live in Port Arlington near Geelong. So we wanted to sort of still maintain that, you know, we could be close enough to spend time with them, and if anything happened, you know, touch wood, we could be there. And so as we actually went on this search, we were looking about a 4-hour radius outside of Melbourne, and realised actually some of the things that were a priority were not a real priority. So, for example, when we looked at how frequently we travel interstate by plane, it was maybe only 6 times a year. And we thought, gosh, we don't need to be close to an airport. We could just plan ahead and do that, or, you know, go on a road trip and do something else along the way. So that gave us a lot more flexibility. And my mum actually grew up in Bairnsdale, so I holidayed down this way in East Gippsland in Victoria for the longest time. And Rob's family had been a lot of camping and fishing, so we had a great affinity with this region. And after looking all different parts of Victoria, we came here on a road trip, and then we found a great house and put in an offer, and it was accepted, and we moved about a month later.
Wow, that was quick.
I know.
Yeah. So what's probably some of the big difference that maybe how did the day look back in your city life compared to a day in the life of Jodie and Rob in East Gippsland?
Well, it's really interesting. I think I actually struggled with the transition from full-time employment to being self-employed. The difficult thing for me was about how to use my time wisely. And although I'm very organised and, you know, quite strategic with my outlook, suddenly when I didn't have any appointments or, you know, structure to my time, I would fill it with a lot of, you know, busy work and a lot of, I guess, jumping at other people's requests. You know, someone would say, hey, do you want to catch up? Or, you know, we want to have a meeting. And I wouldn't really filter it. So I think what I learned when I was just starting out on this journey with Rob and having our own business together was that I needed to create structure in my time in order to use it best. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons. And then, of course, over years, I've refined that. I'm a big fan of my Google Calendar and time blocking particular activities. Yeah. I have some great filtering questions for prospective clients or people who want to, you know, partner with us. And I guess I'm more mindful about how I use my time and being a bit more deliberate about it. So that was a major change from the city and to now, 5 years later. And I use a great scheduling tool called Acuity. If people want to book a time for a phone meeting or a Zoom meeting, then I can send them the link. And that gave me as well a bit more structure to sort of being in control of how I choose to spend my time, and then having freedom to go and do other things, which is also important.
So with some of the differences between the city and where you are now is where you were before in the city, was traffic and time on the road taken up some of your time? Have you found that?
Oh, it was really hard. Yeah, exactly. Well, we were in the west of Melbourne, which is growing at the rate of knots. And the traffic was really challenging then. And I went back just 2 weeks ago to work with a client in that exact area, and running a workshop for them. And I was really stunned at the traffic, at how even during the middle of the day. So that was, and of course, I laugh when I look on Google Maps in our region, and sometimes there's a red line that looks like traffic and there's like 2 cars. So, that's something that we really, we're fortunate here. There's quite a dispersed population, and there's amazing services and facilities and retail and infrastructure, but there's not the busyness of a city. And I just thought I might respond to Jeannie's question about.
I was just going to wait. Please answer that question. It's a good question.
So Jeannie asks, being in business together and working together, has it been difficult? And have any tips for maintaining a healthy relationship? That's a fabulous question. So I'll be honest, and if Rob was sitting here with me, he would say initially it was very hard to work together. I guess we were getting to know each other in a relationship and working together. And initially we worked in a spare room of Rob's apartment with the ironing board and everything else in there. Because he hadn't planned to meet someone and then for them to move in and then run a business from home. So we actually had to move into a bigger place where we could have separate offices and that space. Now that we're here in East Gippsland, we've actually got more of a space which is shared, like a rumpus room, if you will, and we both work from that location. And what we've learnt as well is that we have very different biorhythms. So, for me, I'm not a night owl, and I don't want to talk about work when it comes past 7 o'clock, whereas Rob is more interested in doing that. So we've had to negotiate when is the best time for us to have those important discussions, collaborate on projects, and now we found a really nice happy medium. We have brunch, a brunch meeting, and then we can combine enjoying in a cafe, coming together and talking through what's happening in the week and planning ahead and talking about how things are going with various clients and projects. So, and I guess any tips for maintaining a healthy relationship. The main thing that we learnt was, as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, it's very easy to work huge, stupid hours because there's no one telling you to go home because you work from home often. So for us, maintaining some regular business hours was really important for us to keep some boundaries, but also then to spend time together in our relationship. So that, that would be, our number one tip. And what we're starting to do more of now is to become, I guess, more active and look after our health better. It's very easy to sort of look after everyone else's needs and perhaps not prioritise that. So we're having to sort of refocus on that.
Yeah, and that's actually a challenge for anyone that's in business together. It doesn't always work because regardless of whether you're working from home, whether you're working in a business together, which has business premises, it's all the same because when you finish the day, you go home and you've both been together at the business, and it can be challenging to stop. Because you got that same discussion going, so you basically can't get away from it. So putting some discipline in that must be an essential part of what you're doing.
Yeah, you're spot on, Andy. And thanks, Jeannie. That was a terrific question. I think, we've certainly learnt over time to do that better, and also put some, parameters on when we do client work. So, for example, we both do coaching work with clients, and sometimes people need outside of business hours because that works better for them. And that's fine because we can accommodate that. But what we've learnt as well is that you can't necessarily then work from, 9 o'clock till 10 at night because you're working in different time zones. So I think it helped us to have a bit more perspective and say, okay, well, we can do that and be flexible, but, we can't be working 70 hours a week because that's not productive. It's not fun. And it's not necessarily yielding any better benefits for anyone, let alone for us. So again, putting some parameters on that is really important.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things that I help the business owners I work with going through the Work From Anywhere program, and that's getting over this conditioning that we've been taught over many generations, that we start work at this time and we finish work at this time. It's okay to do work outside of hours, whatever outside of hours is, but that just means you don't do work in the middle part, or you do something else. So that's what it's all about. It's about learning and taking control of, I call it integrating work and life as one. So, people are tempted to, if they start work at 8 o'clock and they've got a client that wants to talk to them at 7 o'clock that night, to just keep working all the way through. But
exactly,
that's not the idea. It's about this work-life integration is about taking control of that, and working in blocks, like you say, using your Google Calendar for blocks is a really good way to do it too, because all the stats are out there. Working long hours is not productive. Absolutely not productive.
That's exactly right. And, we really enjoy going to networking events. There's quite a thriving small business community in our region. And again, that's enjoyable, but, that adds time onto the day too. So I think I've certainly been more disciplined and needed to pull myself back more and sort of be more selective about how we choose to do things. Rob's probably always been that way. He hasn't had to sort of, learn that. But for me, it was a bit of a journey, and he's taught me a lot about that, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, Jenny does have a follow-up comment here. Communication is key, and of course, food helps too. Love.
Absolutely.
Referring to your brunch meetings there.
Yeah, that's right. And even having a structured agenda about what we talk about is part of communication, and getting feedback from each other about how we're going, and having really clear role descriptions is really important as well. So, there's certain things I'm ultimately accountable for, and same for Rob. And I think that's also been really useful for us because we've worked with a lot of couples who work together, or even co-founders, and they don't have clear delineation of their roles. And the downside of that is that some things can just slip through the cracks, some important things. And also there can be some assumptions that someone else is looking after something and they may not be. So we have, that all mapped out, which is really good.
Yeah. And one of the things you just mentioned before is about you're refocusing on your health, and we actually had a bit of a chat about this before we started off air, and that's got a two-way benefit, because that's also an opportunity for you to be active and also get away from talking about the business if you are out there and going walking, running, or whatever activity you decide. So you said you're refocusing on some of your health and activities. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, again, sometimes, it's easy to reward oneself with snacks and, going out. And I think what we've realised that works better for us is when we can meal plan and then, batch cook, and we know what's happening rather than sort of opening the fridge and going, oh, I'm hungry. And I think too, having regular times to actually stop and eat is so important. That's again something that we've started to do more often, and building in time and actually getting out of the house and going for a walk. I mean, we live in such a beautiful area that we we don't get to enjoy it as much as we have been, but that was because of, of the choices we made. So now we're more focused on that. Making sure that we're not sort of trying to, do too many things all at once, and having downtime is important to be able to relax and rejuvenate.
Yeah, it's good for your body and your mind. Absolutely.
Yeah, true.
So some of the tools that you use. Tell us about some of the tools you do. A lot of you have remote clients. So you got clients that are just not face to face. What is some of your favorite tools you use in your business that enable you to work from anywhere?
Well, the primary one that enables us to work from anywhere, particularly around coaching, is using our webcam like we're set up today, but also using Zoom, a video conferencing tool. And, we found that that's been super easy for our clients just to, be confident to use. And in fact, we've also been doing some support for some of our clients to implement that as a tool when they have remote teams, or in the case of working with committees or boards, sometimes people are traveling, 2-3 hours to get to meetings. And that's not necessarily productive. It's not necessarily safe. So that's a fantastic tool. We really love that. Acuity, I mentioned before, a scheduling tool. There's other ones out there like Calendly, and that's super for being able to have people book scheduled times for specific things. And people can pay online as well using PayPal or Stripe. So that was one of the first tools actually that we purchased, years gone by, and it's just refined and gotten better and better with the features. So, and ultimately, what I love about that is it reduces a back and forth email about availability. And I know you use Calendly, don't you?
Yep, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yep, couldn't live without it.
I know, it's super. And actually, I was catching up with a friend recently. We were going to have a Zoom call, and I sent her the link. She lives in the US, and I sort of felt a bit officious doing that. But I just thought, look, it's going to work. She can check her time zone. She can see my availability of time. Yeah. Obviously can't see the appointments. It really does work super well. We use Xero for our accounting. And in fact, when we first started our business, I had some pretty poor advice from an accountant who said, you're too small, just use an Excel spreadsheet. But, for anyone who's listening and watching this live, a legitimate business with a separate bank account and some sort of software tool to manage your finances is essential. So it's made our life so much easier. It's got the bank feeds, you can invoice from it. So that's really important. And I think a lot of businesses don't watch the financial side of things, and they just have a lot of busy work. But that's been really fantastic for us.
Yeah, well, I use all of those tools. Like you said, instead of Acuity, I use Calendly. Couldn't live without it, but can't live without Zoom either. I use Zoom, weekly, for coaching calls and for lots of other things. It's just so quick and easy. So, and it enables you to, especially for the businesses that have got staff that are located in different places, it cuts out the cost of travel. It cuts out the time of travel. Yes, face-to-face meetings are really, really important, but not having to do it all the time. So, yeah, it's definitely a tool that we implement through the Work From Anywhere program as well. So to wrap up, we get into the end there. If you've got any advice for people, so business owners out there that are considering, especially the folks in the city, considering escaping the city or escaping that corporate job and getting out to the regions where it's beautiful and there's no traffic. Do you have any advice for those people?
Oh, absolutely. Well, my first bit of advice would be, go out and explore and stay at some farm stays or hotels or Airbnbs or caravan parks, and do a recce, go and see what is out there. Talk to people in the community about what they love and, what lights them up and what sort of things are happening, not just events and festivals, but sort of the community things that's bind communities together. And then make a list of the things that you think are a priority for you to live your life, but then be very, very open-minded. And I guess the last thing would be, I think a lot of people in more traditional jobs or corporate jobs might feel like unemployment or employment might be a problem. But in fact, many regional and rural communities are really trying to attract talent to live and work and invest and visit in their communities. So you'd be surprised, it's not just doctors and health service people, it's professionals of all sorts. And then, with the National Disability Insurance Scheme, there's all sorts of opportunities for people who can support people in aged care and disabilities as well. So there's a whole spectrum. And in our community, there's heaps of agricultural jobs as well. So, be open-minded about the sort of more traditional jobs. And of course, doing subcontract work can be a really good way to diversify your income if you're starting your own business. And there are also some fantastic initiatives and programs like yours to, equip people with the skills and the confidence to be able to work from anywhere. So I guess in closing, there's a whole world out there. Go find it, go experience it. Don't feel like you've got to stay where you are.
Yeah, and another point there is exactly, you don't necessarily have to look for employment in the place you're going to. Just stay in the job or the business you're in the city, and just set it up so you don't have to be there. So
it's exactly,
and that's a happening thing. That so many of the regions are now getting business owners doing that. They're slowly waking up that they don't have to go and fight that traffic. They can actually run their business from anywhere.
That's right. And more and more people are being open-minded about that. And it's definitely worth, having a conversation and negotiating that. And there's also a number of co-working spaces that are popping up in regional and rural areas for government employees or other people who, might be remote employees, that meets their workplace health and safety requirements as well. So there's all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah, there is. Now, sorry, I'm just distracted looking here. Karen, my sister, who you've met by video call before, she's trying to comment but is not able to comment. So she's actually sending me messages to ask her questions. So I'll ask. Karen says, "What do you do when life gets busy? How do you slip back into those? How do you stop from slipping back into those long hours?"
Oh, fabulous question, Karen. I think it's actually about being more deliberate and focused. One of the things that helps me is actually documenting the workflows of what needs to be done, and then estimating how much time things will take, and then actually, sitting and using a timer to work on specific things, for a short period of time. Not really the Pomodoro method, which is 25 minutes. That's too short for me, but, in blocks of, say, 50 minutes. And that helps me really get a lot more work done. Same for Rob as well. And when it comes to the face-to-face work that we do either via Zoom or face-to-face in real life, allowing ourselves to have breaks in between is really important because, this people stuff can sometimes be intense and sometimes, full on. But it's also really pleasurable and amazing. So giving ourselves breaks in between that makes a big difference. And the travel that we need to do, making sure that we're not trying to, do massive long trips on one day. We always travel the day before, running a workshop, and usually stay that night, the second night, and we just build that into the pricing, and, then we're not rushing around like crazy people.
Great advice. Yeah, it is a challenge, that time thing. And I don't know how you go at estimating how long something takes, but I always get it wrong.
Oh yeah, I don't always get it right, but there's some things, I overestimate, and I've sort of fine-tuned that. But yeah, it takes a bit of practice.
Yeah, I've just got a follow-up question here from Karen. Any links for a good list of contacts to get started in regions, like a general list, which maybe is something we can actually, if you've got a list, we can maybe add a link to it in the comments or the show notes.
Yeah, sure. I'll forward that through. I mean, I know particularly for my region, there's some great contacts that I could certainly share, but there's some, to encourage people to move to regional areas as well.
Okay, fantastic. We have got one last comment. Thanks for sharing your. There you can read the comment there from Jenny.
So Jenny says, "Thanks for sharing your story and insights today. Lovely listening to you and virtually meeting you." Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Lovely to virtually meet you too. I look forward to having a coffee and a piece of cake with you sometime, because I know that that's one of your favourite things to do.
Absolutely. Can't go without coffee and cake. Okay, so we will wind up there. We have managed to go over, which is quite okay. While you're still before you go, we will add this in the comments, but where can people find you?
Yeah, so people can find us on Facebook with Happy Changemakers, and welcome to get in touch with any questions that we can help with, absolutely anytime.
Okay, fantastic. And we will put those links in the comments. Before you go, I'll tell everybody out there, the people that are listening, next week's show is actually not going to happen, because next week I start my Carpe Diem Conversation Roadshow, where I'm actually taking a presentation, this Carpe Diem conversation, not this sort of show. It's a presentation and a real conversation with business owners. Going on the road with that one next week. This time next week, Wednesday, yes, I'll be in Sydney, actually speaking at an event. Then Thursday, I'm in Newcastle. Friday, I'm in Sawtell, going all the way up to Sawtell. And just speaking with Jodie, I'm also going to head down to Gippsland and do a couple of events down there. So next week, I might throw in a random one, but we won't have a guest. We won't have a guest this time next week. But the following week, we have Kay Saarinen and Greg Saarinen from Saarinen Organics. So thank you so much, Jodie, for sharing your wonderful story. It's been a pleasure to meet you again. I'm really looking forward to actually meeting you in real life when I come down there.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you to everybody that's joined us again. Thank you for your questions and your support. Until next time, as always, Carpe Diem. Seize the day every single day. See you next week.